We have everyone so we can start streaming and then give you guys like 5 seconds and then Marcus can call it.
Alrighty.
Marcus, on the background thing, I have seen other, county meetings with people with those fake backgrounds, so it should work.
Yeah, weird. My video filters are all there, but my virtual backgrounds are say none. Oh, it does allow me to add one though. I wonder if maybe I haven't logged in. Oh, maybe I haven't logged in.
You probably just went straight to the link and didn't log in.
Yeah. Sign in. There it is. I just don't want everybody to see my messy office.
We will only
not messy, but
we will silently judge you. Don't worry.
Marcus, I accidentally turned off your video when I was trying to look for backgrounds, so you just need to.
Okay.
Ah!
And you get a
Ah!
background.
Look at the puppy dog.
That's the husky, my husky. Well, not my husky. But...
Oh, he's adorable.
Oh, there we go. I wasn't signed in. That's the deal.
We are live.
So when you're ready, Chair, you can call us to order.
Oh, I froze. There we go. That's better. Okay, I'll go ahead and call Bid Advisory Board meeting to order at 1:05 p.m. on March 17th, 2021. Let's move on to item 2 of the agenda, roll call.
All commissioners are present.
Is that all we need to do?
Technically, yes. It's the chair who has anything separate they want to do. We're not picky.
All right, good. On to item number 3, any matters from the staff?
No matters from staff.
Great. On to item number 4, communications received and filed.
I have not received any communications, and
No.
we have not received any requests for telecomment for the Bid Advisory Board.
Okay, therefore, item number 5, matters from the public. Since there are no members from the public and we've received no telecommunications, we will move on from item number 5. And move on to item number 6, our regular calendar, 6A, continued discussion and direction concerning the draft annual report for upcoming fiscal year 2021-2022. So I suppose we could stick with our standard structure of going through page by page, and we could either have Travis give us another quick summary, but given that we've done that many times, we could just go through page by page, and if any board members have comments, questions, they can present them. Does that sound like a good plan for all the other board members?
Sounds good.
All right. Travis, does that sound like a good, efficient way to go through this?
Sure. If that's how you guys want to do it, great.
Do you have another recommendation?
Well, I think it's probably best to continue or finish on the recommendations first, because that's where we left off and have been for several meetings.
Okay.
The rest of the document we've already gone over and discussed meeting number 1, and there hasn't been any changes other than the additions of some graphics.
Okay. Okay, I am amenable to that. The rest of the board good for starting out with the recommendations, and then if we have any comments or questions regarding the rest of the report, we could just present, we could just ask them in general at the end instead of going through page by page. Sound good?
Yeah, thumbs up.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right, great. If you wanted to give a nonverbal approval, I suggest you hit the raise your hand for a nonverbal approval, and then just make sure you you go.
No, it's fine with me too.
Just make sure you unraise it at some point. Okay, great. Well, instead of calling it raised hand, we'll call it high five. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin with the current draft recommendations from this board for the upcoming fiscal year. And that would be the recommendations actionable by the Mendocino County Tourism Commission, starting on page 26 of the draft report. So do we have any questions or comments regarding recommendation number 1? Hearing none, let's go on. Do we have any questions or comments regarding recommendation?
Can you hold on a second? I'm just
Yep.
trying to catch up with you here. I have technology that I'm trying to juggle.
No worries, no worries.
And I want to, which one's number 1? Let's see.
The including campgrounds pursuit, private campgrounds in the TOT and bid recommendation, that continue to be pursued.
Okay, no comments, no changes.
Yeah, we wanted that one carried over from a previous year, and we stated that originally recommended. All right. And then any questions or comments regarding recommendation number 2? Bid advisory board recommends that when appropriate, MCT staff and board directors work with Civitas, yada, yada, yada. That's to explore going from the 89 to the 95, 94.
94 law, yeah.
We previously recommended this, didn't we?
Yes, I believe this has been carried forward twice. Hold on one second, I'm looking. At least once.
Okay. I mean, do we want to note that same as we did with 1, originally recommended and da 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 da, or recommended in previous years and being re-recommended? It's always good. Like, I feel like if I'm looking at this report 2 years from now, I won't look at this and think that's the first time we recommended it. And that's my only input on that.
Right. I think we had conversation around this in meeting number 2 and changed the verbiage at that point. I'm happy to change it again should this board see fit. But we changed to when appropriate.
Right. Just a verbiage that says it has been, implying that it has been previously recommended, though. Does the rest of the board feel that that might be something they want to see in there or not?
I think, haven't we said as previously recommended? I think we've used that language before. And if we want to be specific and say as previously recommended in, X, Y, or Z year.
I'm okay with not having to get specific of when it was originally recommended. But we can just say as previously recommended, the bid advisory board recommends that when appropriate, blah, 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 blah. Rest of the board good with that verbiage? Okay, great.
That addition has been made.
Thank you,
Can
Travis.
I just make sure I want to make sure I'm on the right page. I apologize. So are we on page 23?
26. 23 would be the previous recommendations. If you see a response after the recommendation, then that's the previous year's
All right.
status update or something. And plus, I think all of the new recommendations are in red. The new draft recommendations are in red. So page 26 is where the new recommendations start.
Okay, got it.
Great. Any more questions or comments on draft recommendation number 2, actionable by MCTC? All right, number 3. Questions or comments on 3, that MCTC form an ad hoc committee to explore other ways to enhance revenue, and all that goes with that. My one comment on this is I think we should probably say when that is appropriate as well, unless we think it's a pressing matter now, given the situation, that, other options. I mean, does staff, does county, and does the MCTC board have the time within this next fiscal year to pursue this? Or do we once again say at the appropriate time? Any comments from other board members on my question?
Maybe you could just give me a little bit of insight here. How is this different from what MCTC would normally do? Aren't they always exploring any and all possible ways to enhance promotion for tourism? How is this different than their normal objective?
I think, is it the enhanced revenue for tourism promotion is the point here? Was it, because, remind me, Marcus, or whoever come up with this, we've come up with it before, that it's related to COVID, I think, right? And if revenues are down, that means that the budget is down, right? And so the idea was to enhance revenue.
My original understanding, my original understanding of this was actually pre-COVID. If I'm mistaken, correct me. But I believe this was to explore other possible ways aside from collection of the bid to provide revenue for our destination marketing organization. And
that's my understanding, Marcus, of this recommendation for the past. This will be the second year it's recommended.
Mm-hmm. You know, as for example, the pursuit of private campgrounds getting included, that would be possibly an example of, if that hadn't been done, something that this ad hoc committee can do. And yes, Cindy, I imagine that's probably on the minds of, always on the minds of Travis as executive director and the board. But I guess the idea of this was to get all avenues of insight, because we do ask that, I believe, at some point, I thought there was a request that this ad hoc committee consist of, oh yeah, there it is, be comprised of not just lodging stakeholders, but and MCTC board members, but county staff or county elected officials and MCTC staff. So it was kind of basically to create one focused task group to pursue this, versus it just being an open-ended kind of pursuit by the MCTC board. I think that was.
Good, thank you. That helps.
Yeah, just a task force basically targeting that one purpose.
Well, maybe, so let me ask a different question. Travis, is this clear to you? And if it has been on here before, second point, should we say as previously, recommended? But I mean, it's being directed towards MCTC, well, I guess the board, which would then, I guess, yeah, it's not really the staff, it's not really Travis, but I don't know if it's super clear or not. Like, if Cindy had a question about it, I think that's fair. And I read it and I go, what would they do, or why wouldn't they be doing it anyway? And here I thought it was, related to COVID. So maybe it does need a little bit more meat on it. And I'm sorry if we're beating a dead horse. If it was meant to be clear, maybe it's not yet. And I wonder what Travis thinks about that. It's meant to be helpful, and we need to be clear, I guess, is the bottom line.
I think the intent is clear. The board understands and took this under advisement last year. It just happened that COVID came about, and the organizational development committee decided at that time to not focus on this at that time. But it's clear to the organization. We know what you're asking us to do. If you want to change it for public facing, fine. But MCTC staff and board understands what you're getting at, the intent.
Gotcha. It is important to make sure it's clear for any stakeholders or members of the public that are reading this. Perhaps we can put some verbiage in it that says, aside from the bid and the county match, that might make it a little more clear. Would that, John Dixon, for you, if we put, explore and investigate any possible ways to enhance revenue for tourism promotion aside from the bid and county match? That maybe make it a little more clear that it's not COVID related. that it's an
No.
augmentation of the income that already exists.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think any and all possible ways, it's fine. It's all there. That's good enough. I think it's fine.
So do we want to put at the appropriate time on this one as well, or would this board feel that the parties involved in this recommendation could accomplish this or start it in this upcoming fiscal year?
I think that's an implied, sometimes I'm all for saying, making a recommendation or an action thing that has a deadline or a date on it, meaning, within this fiscal year or by, a certain time or quarter or something like that. I'm always happy when there's a goal that has a timeline to it. But I think in this case, as soon as possible or within this fiscal year is probably implied. And none of the rest of them really have time limits or, deadlines on them. So for that reason, I'm okay with keeping it as it is.
Okay. Not so much a deadline as what I was saying was more of when to start it. Recommendation number 2 recommends that when appropriate. And I wanted to know if we feel we need to put that on this one as well, when appropriate, when the time seems right, at the first available opportunity, something along those lines, or we just leave it as is, and that, that's kind of implied. Do it whenever it's possible.
I vote for leaving it as is.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's given and implied. If we put it as a recommendation, hopefully it's something that can be accomplished or explored this year, as it is in this upcoming fiscal year, I mean. So, okay, any questions or comments from Cindy or John Glidewell regarding recommendation number 3 for MCTC? Alrighty, moving on to, Cindy?
No, I was just gonna say it, now that that you guys have kind of talked it through with me a little more, it's pretty plain. For someone and I imagine the only people looking at this are already gonna be able to see it in context. So I think it's fine written as is. If it had the addition of, besides the bid revenues, something that heated into looking for enhanced revenue outside of what we're already getting, I probably wouldn't have had that question at all to begin with, but I'm kind of new on the block, and so it sounds like pretty much everyone reading this is gonna understand it as it is.
Okay, great. Thank you, Cindy.
I noticed that John Glidewell raised his hand as well.
John?
Or was that just a high five, John?
Yeah, that was a high five. I was saying, I think you guys nailed it. So high five.
Got it.
All right.
Thanks
Okay.
for catching that, Travis.
Yep.
Moving on to number 4. Take a moment to.
I have a comment. The parentheses isn't closed, which I think is meant to be after the word group.
Thank you. Noted.
And forgive me, I forget. Is this a previous recommendation?
This is a new recommendation.
Right.
And John Glidewell has spearheaded this one.
That's right.
Any questions for me?
I think it's fine as written.
I agree.
Looks good.
Alrighty. We had a number 5. That was is that just a place marker, Travis, or was that something we were potentially?
Yeah, 5 is not there.
Okay.
There is 5.
All right, moving on to our draft recommendations for this upcoming fiscal year that are actionable by the County of Mendocino. So I wasn't present at the last meeting. I did get a little bit of a catch up on what was discussed. But number 1, I guess, would be to address, making sure we've got a good pool of lodging representatives. This would make it not just owners, but either a general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top-level business operations. And that, Travis,
So
can't click on the ordinance. Where in the ordinance is that going? What is that
in
section?
definitions.
Definitions of lodging owners or large lodging owners?
Well, in definitions, we would add that section, general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top level business operations.
As its own definition or part of an existing definition?
As part of the existing definition of operator.
Of operator, that's it, okay. And the board feels, so this would in fact then make that an option for large, medium, or small to designate a general manager or top level employee. And we have any, this the direction the board feels we want to go with this to enhance the pool of potential lodging representatives that can sit on the MCTC board?
So Callie couldn't make the meeting today, but she did have some feedback, and I don't exactly know how to deliver this, about the medium or large at large position, changing that verbiage. And she made some phone calls to the majority or a few, I'm not exactly sure, of large lodging properties. And there was nobody in favor that she spoke to of making that change.
Making which change specifically?
Change to medium or large at large.
Okay, so that was, did she at all ask about the possibility of the restructuring of the seats to be 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small?
Yeah, it's a no from the large community.
Okay. Well, this seems to be the best route to go at this time. I still feel strongly about that financially. I guess the representation on the board is correct, but in terms of representation of lodging businesses in general, you know, we've got 3 large representatives on the MCTC board representing all lodging, but you know, really representing 20 or so lodging, and then we have 2 seats representing the remaining 400 or so lodgings in the county, and I still feel maybe in the future that can be discussed further and explored as to whether that is the way this MCTC lodging seats are structured. So, but that being said, I think the best route to go at this time to open up the pool and easiest way in terms of changing the ordinance, one little change versus multiple changes over the whole ordinance. I think this probably is the best way to go right now. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, I had a conversation by email with Callie too. We tried to connect on this, but it sounds like maybe Travis talked to Callie since the email that I got, which was on the 9th actually. So was it 8 days ago? Have you talked to her in the last 8 days, Travis, about this?
Yeah, I think her and I spoke Monday about this.
Okay. So what she said at the time was that she talked to one of the other operators, I think G2, and that, you know, it was helping me remember where some of this came from. And I also had a conversation with former supervisor John McGowan, because he was part of the ad hoc group that and really led this development of where we are now with the board and MCTC, and just helping me remember sort of again where some of this came from. I didn't want it to be just all on my memory, and Marcus, who was there too, and it was helpful. I think what Callie says is probably most pertinent. John just remembers sort of everything the way I did, so that was helpful. I just sort of reconfirmed sort of what I remembered and what I have said here in previous meetings. But one thing Callie said was that when she talked to G2, that there was an idea that having a medium operator as a seat, as we just heard, from Travis, gives people pause, gives the large operators pause. But G2, it sounds like had an idea, and I don't know if this was talked about more with other large operators, but that if there was no large operator running for an at-large seat, then that a medium operator could run. And then if that happened, the people voting on that would still be the large operators, meaning, they would still have control by vote, but that the name or the property owner could be medium to run for it if it was a seat that just nobody else was running for. So that was just an idea just to throw out there. It sounds a little complicated, and then I guess the last point is that in fact, in G2's case, adding general managers to the mix was okay with him. And I want to ask a question on that before I sort of give the floor back. If we change the definition, and this is one thing I talked to John McCown about, it seems though the way it's written that the definition then would be across all size properties. Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear that if we make that recommendation, when we write it, that it's not just large properties. It's even though it's more likely that a large property would have a general manager, but there may be a medium, and there may be somebody that's hired by, who knows, a small operator that runs the business for them and is in charge of operations. I mean, I think we have to be aware that that could happen, and that the definitional change would be open across the board, not just for large properties. So that's all I have.
That is important to remember. And actually, John, thinking back to our ad hoc committee, I remember my memory of it was actually I was for, back when we were restructuring the governance and creating this whole new structure. I actually remember myself being for allowing an authorized representative. And to my memory, I think we all kind of decided, let's try owners, see how that goes. And if later down the line, we're struggling to find people to represent and to sit on the board, then we explore adding the general manager or designated, employee. And I think that's exactly what happened and what we're doing right now. So given that memory, I am leaning towards, wanting to definitely recommend this to open up and, allow people like John Glidewell to be able to be on the MCTC board. And I think it could just be, hopefully it's not going to be something that's going to be used or abused in a way that in a struggle for power or anything like that. Hopefully it will be to provide somebody that gives good representation. And I imagine if I stay on this bid board, I will probably continue to advocate as to whether 3 large, 1 medium, 1 small is a fair representation. Sorry, I'm back on my other side note, and I'll explore that with the board in the future and continue to explore that, because if we are thinking of proper representation, can 3 large seats, 1 medium and 1 small, is that really good? Can 3 large advocate for the needs of a medium lodging or the needs of a small large lodging? So is that accurate representation? The purpose of the board is representation for all avenues of the economics and the businesses in the county. So But I'm okay with pursuing that maybe in the future. You know, we're getting close to needing to submit this, and I still feel that this is probably the best route to go at this time.
Can I just say that it's our prerogative to make recommendations how we see fit on this board, and what we're doing is taking recommendations from from Callie, who's a large operator and in a good position to make this. She visited one of our meetings a couple meetings ago and made this recommendation. But we are the board, and if we, meaning Cindy, John, myself, and you, Marcus, it's up to us to make the recommendations. And so I think we need to discuss this and what our opinions are about it. And I think gathering information is good, but I think I would like to hear from everybody now that we've sort of gotten some information outside of we've done our due diligence, I think, here, and gotten some opinions, but it still is on our shoulders to make the decisions and the recommendations as we see fit. We are the board here for the bid, and it's up to us to make these recommendations. So let's have a discussion about this based on what we know now, not necessarily what, it doesn't mean it has to match what the large operators in the straw poll said to Callie, is I guess, to say it bluntly. So can we have a discussion about this? Marcus, you just said you're okay with leaving it. If I'm just can regurgitate back what I heard you say, that
seems like the best logical choice right now if we wanted to be able to expand the pool of people. And I believe this recommendation comes from comes as a recommendation from the MCTC board for us to consider, not Kelly and the large lodging. Is that correct, Travis?
Yes.
Yeah, it comes from the MCTC board, which is a representation of all kind of economic avenues in the valley, sorry, in the county. But yes, it is important that you make a valid point, John Dixon. We can get input from other places, but we have the final say of how we want to word it, interpret it, add it, or not add it. So we are, lodging owners or representatives, and so it is important for us. And I really, I started thinking that, when John Dixon, you mentioned what G2 had said, and we could certainly add that as a possible recommendation and say, if we wanted to allow the Board of Supervisors to have some kind of two options that they could explore. One could be change the definition of operator. One could be if no candidate presents themselves in large, then open it up to medium. And I kind of starting to think that might be a good route to go, present both recommendations as options of one or the other. Right. I want to hear from other board members.
can I just be clear about?
Yeah.
Can I just finish
Really quickly? John Dixon, then John Glidewell.
If we want to, Marcus, you said just a minute ago that you like the idea, you want to pursue it in the future of having the balance back to medium, like 2, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, why not do that now? Is that something that you see as a preference and that you think is equitable? And we're making recommendations on this for the purpose of having, more representation, more options for, board members. Why not make that recommendation now? It's still an open question, and that's for you and for the other board members.
Okay. John Glidewell?
Yeah, I appreciate John Dixon's point. This is our charge, it's our task, and it's important that we understand the information from different sources, because it also plays, it's a factor, it's an influence. So I agree, and I appreciate that. My position is the original motivation behind this recommendation was to basically find more qualified people to serve on this board. And I think that either option accomplishes that goal. So for me, I don't know, I feel like we're at a point where we can continue to talk about it, but we're getting close to our report deadline, and I don't want us to lose sight of that goal of including larger, medium properties. I don't know that it's, I mean, let's make the recommendation or not. I'm okay either way. It doesn't bother me. I think that there are enough mechanisms in place for that second round of review that if we get applications, the board's not going to assign someone who isn't qualified, in my opinion. But again, you have more history, John. You have more history with how things have shaken out in the past, and so my perspective is, as long as there's enough protection in that second tier, that gatekeeping method, then I'm totally fine with going either or both directions. So that's my position anyhow.
Again, John, to clarify, it's not an appointed position. It's a voted on position. So theoretically, an appointee, a designated employee from the large could be from medium, small, or large. If we go with recommendation number 1, could be thrown in as a nominee. And if it's for the large, then we've got 20 lodging owners voting on whether this designated employee gets in or not. And is that something that can be, I don't want to go this route necessarily, but is that something that can in the future be taken advantage of or used for purposes other than making sure the right person gets on the board, I guess is the possible concern on that. Because it will be, if a designee comes from the large lodging, it is just the large lodging that would be voting on that designee. If a designee comes from the medium, it's just the medium lodging that's going to be voting on that. So the whole idea was to make sure that we don't create a situation that led to what happened in 2012, 13, and 14 of a struggle for control or power. And that's always in the back of the mind of
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
So I definitely would like the board to consider what we've talked about here is the possibilities of 1, that we recommend redefining the ownership, which is what we've written here in this draft. 2, that we recommend restructuring the representation on the MCTC Board of Lodging to be 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small. It's unfortunate. If there were 6 seats, I would definitely be advocating for 2 large, 2 medium, 2 small. But there is only 5. So I think that's a good way to go. So that would be the other possible scenario. And then the third is what G2 recommended, that a recommendation that says if no at-large lodging presents itself, then it opens up potentially to a medium seat. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at large. If one of the large seats doesn't have an option, we could say then it opens up to medium. It could be any of the 3. We could say that as well. So I think we've got to consider these 3 possibilities. Do we want to choose one? Do we want to recommend all 3 as possibilities and let the Board of Supervisors decide? So I guess that is really the main question here.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
And that is that I don't know if it would work to have option 3, where if a large property doesn't present themselves, a medium property could take that position. I don't see that working well between for the county, for Sherry's end of running an election.
Mm-hmm. I see. And timing wise also, that would add a whole another 2 months to the process, a month to send out applications.
Don't see that as feasible.
Okay.
It sounds like, Travis, what you mean is Right, so nobody comes forward in the period of time from large lodging, and then it would have to be a second round, basically.
Right.
Right, and then,
In December, December notifications, January election time, and the person wouldn't be determined until February at the earliest, if that were to go that route, which was
Right.
already past the time that they should have been sat.
right, so people would see nominations from medium properties, but never see voting, because they wouldn't be voting, it would be the large operators voting too. I can see it would be confusing. I read this, from Callie's email from 8 days ago. It sounds like maybe it's something that she didn't present to Travis, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to talk to her more about it. But I think it sounds difficult to manage as well, and maybe it's not something that is workable, and not sure it gets us to the point is more options for qualified MCTC board members, in a way that's representative. So I would scrap the idea, actually.
Of option 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Do John Glidewell or Cindy Wagner feel that same way about removing option 3 as a possible route or recommendation?
Yeah, I agree with John Dixon.
It makes sense to drop option 3 because it would sounds cumbersome. I'm just wondering, we were just talking before about the motivation of why this came up was to present the opportunity for more seats, but we've let that conversation has drifted also into adding, is it a different question of how should we have better representation, more, is it not so much it does offer more seats by changing the numbers between large, medium, and small, but also is it more fair, more just, better representation that isn't just monetarily motivated. So I'm just kind of wondering, would it make more sense to do it as approach it in two separate ways? And I understand that the option 2 does allow more seats, but it almost has a different motivation behind it. Maybe we put it all together in one, but I think it's worth noting that our original request from Callie and the MCTC was just, we would like to expand the possibility of just having more people available. And then we've kind of taken it to a different question as well of, is there a way for us to make this more balanced and just?
Good point, Cindy. That is correct. And that question, kind of came up. And if it's possible that we could address both, which is why I kind of feel that these two recommendations either or versus both. Both would, of course, open up numerous possibilities for the pool of people that could sit on this board. But I kind of felt that the second recommendation of restructuring the seats to 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small would address both issues. One being that it would open up the pool a little bit better of people that could sit on the board, and it would also address more of an equitable representation on the board for lodging across the county. It does play in with that one, but I think they do tie together, and I think it's important probably that we choose one or the other, or present both and let the Board of Supervisors choose. And yeah, so.
Do we have enough discussion?
John Glidewell, go ahead.
John, did you want to go ahead? Okay. Do we have enough information and have had enough time to discuss to make a motion?
Well, I was going to make the point that we don't have to make any recommendation. It's not one or the other. It could also be none. That's our prerogative. That's all I'm saying.
It is. I've heard, it's important to take the input from our surrounding boards, whether it be the Board of Supervisors or the MCTC board, and they're saying they're having a hard time finding, finding a pool of representation. We're talking 3 seats between 20 lodging. So it, by that cycle, we're, that's only 7 different groups of individuals that, as it rotates, or a lot of them end up staying on for multiple terms until the restrictions for those terms come into play. And it's very possible in 5 or 6 years there's 2 or 3 lodging owners out of the 20 that can't sit on the board because they've termed out, and then we're down to a pool of 15 to 16 or 17, which is once again why it would be beneficial to restructure the seats to 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small.
Well, and that's maybe the salient point here. The group of large operators wanted and negotiated for 3 out of the 5 seats. And it was also negotiated to have, lodging, has only 5 seats instead of 6, an 11-person board. So all this was negotiated before, and it was set up in a way that, a lot of people agreed to. 3 out of 5 seats for large is sort of what it is. And it's always been known that it creates a limited gene pool of operators because there's few of them. I don't know.
I know, right? It's easy to go back and forth on this. Travis, question for you, because I forget, regarding the large seats being set, nominations go out. So let's just say it's medium. Sheets go out to all medium lodging owners, allowing them to put their name in as a nominee. Then that application goes back to the county, and the county vets them as to whether they are or are not experienced or have the skills or the requirements.
Correct.
So the county, in fact, vets them. So if we kept with recommendation number 1, and we opened up general manager employees, so it would be the county, in fact, determining whether they were or not qualified to sit on the board. It wouldn't be MCTC board. It wouldn't be the large lodging operators. They would end up voting on who they wanted, but it really is up to the county to make sure the person that's the nominee is qualified. So maybe if the board feels comfortable that we trust the county to do that, make sure it's a qualified person, that's obviously to be considered. Or we create another recommendation that makes the county vetting a little bit more sort of assured that vetting does occur. That it's not just every name goes in, every name's put in the hat.
I'm gonna say what my opinion is, and then somebody can make a motion. But I agree with John. I mean, John sounds like he wants to, move on, and I agree. So personally, and I'll say with this caveat, it's not because I'm a medium property or I know more, people. I just think overall, when you look at the whole big picture, that there's the best way to get qualified people who are running their own businesses to be on the board would be to have a 2-2-1 structure. I believe that to be true. I also believe it to be true that by opening the door for non-owners is fraught with some pitfalls that everybody can imagine. And we're opening it not just to large, but to medium property owners, which right now, of course, only 1 board member out of the 11, and small, which is also 1 also, and I get that. So the risk is lower. But for the large 3 seats, they could be all general managers, say. So my preference would be to do a 2-2-1 structure, or a 2-1-1 structure with the one, as we've written it here, could be either or. You know, and if it's at large or whatever, so that opens up the gene pool by being either or, medium or large. And my recommendation, and what I would make a motion for if that's necessary here, is to be the first step would be to open it that way. It would be 2, 1 and 1, and then the fifth seat could be large or medium, at large. Voted on, then, you know, you have to consider that, voted on by large or medium, and not make the definitional change. I think that's where I fit. That's my comfort zone.
John, if we were to go that route, I would recommend that we just make the fifth seat an at-large lodging and all lodging votes on it. Then why just make it large and medium? We should. It kind of makes sense that we would have 2 large seats, 1 medium, 1 small, and then 1 lodging at large. That would open it up to potentially anybody, and then all lodging would vote on it. And I know that's for the county. That's going to be, once again, cumbersome, sending out nominations for that at large to over 400 lodging establishments, and then also sending the voting paperwork as well. But if we were to go that route, that would be my recommendation, that the 1 at-large lodging be totally at large. Any thoughts or input from Cindy or John? John G?
Yes, I don't like that structure just because I feel, and I know this is on the record, but if you have too many small lodging properties as a voice for lodging in the county, it starts to pull from the interests of lodging as a whole. And I know that may be an unpopular opinion. I think the medium and the large lodging operators understand more about running hotel businesses in the county than Airbnb absentee owners. And I would fear that having too many seats represented on this board by small lodging owners or operators could be against the best interest of the bid or even this board. And again, that's a generalization, but that would be my fear. Yeah, I know that, again, we do have the tiers set up so that voting would allow qualified individuals, but I think 1 should be the limit for the small lodging operators on this board. If I can say, I agree with that. And I would make my point again that for the at-large seat that we're talking about, you know, medium or large would be my recommendation for that same reason.
We'd have to explore whether that can be done at all. I mean, whether that could be done legally according to the law. I mean, to the bid ordinance, and also whether you know, what it would take to what verbiage it would take to change to make that happen in the ordinance. So once again, I feel I'm sorry. Go ahead, John Glidewell.
Well, yeah, you're right, Marcus. I mean, there would be some exploration needed, and maybe that's not really the scope of where we're at in this fiscal year. But I would even go as far as to say, if we really wanted to increase the applicant pool in the best interest of this board and the county, we would open it up to 2, and at large for an additional medium or large if a small operator just didn't apply or we didn't have one. And I know that, again, we could go around in circles on this and we could talk about it, but I think as many options exist, we probably need to just decide on a direction. So I'll certainly let you finish your thought, but I'm ready to make a motion when this board is ready to hear one.
Okay. Before you make a motion, I'm really leaning towards presenting both as possibilities and saying and letting the Board of Supervisors explore which one might be the best and make the decision. And I know that's kind of passing the buck a little bit, but I think both options are viable, and I think that might be the route to go. And if the choice is made of restructuring the representation to 2, 2, and 1, then that came from the Board of Supervisors via a recommendation from us, but it came from the Board of Supervisors and the at-large owners. Some of them might gripe, but it was a decision made by, the oversight board that oversees this board and, well, it oversees MCTC board. Any other comments before John Gladwell makes his motion?
I'd like to hear from Cindy myself.
Yeah, thank you, John. We were talking before about crafting verbiage. I think a lot of it for me is going to depend upon how we state this, and I do like the idea of letting it be worded in such a way that there can be some pick and choose involved from people even outside of us. I understand that we have that assignment to advise, but since this recommendation originally came from the MCTC, it would be great to kind of have a larger pool weighing in on this, and letting the Board of Supervisors choose. If we worded it in such a way that would say or, I think would be good. And I still feel like dropping the third is probably the third option we have before is the way to go. I'd love to hear John's motion if you guys are ready for that.
I'm ready.
Y'all ready for this?
High five. Thumbs
Not.
up, whatever we.
All right. I move to, and this is going to be truncated because of the discussion we've just had, but recommend that we open up for option 2 and or option 1, and then have MCTC board decide on choosing one and or the other.
MCTC board?
Right? Isn't that who would adopt whether or not the...
No, these are recommendations actionable by the County of Mendocino, so it'd be the Board of Supervisors, John.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, you're right. So, same motion, but with what you said.
So, just to be clear, the motion is to present both recommendations as or options, either or, to
and or
this report. But to recommend that only one be chosen. Hopefully that the supervisors don't adopt both, but that just one be chosen of either changing the operations definition, operator's definition, or restructuring the lodging seats to 2 large, 2 medium, 1 small. And John, did you have a specific in the second? I don't know if actually this needs to be included, but in the second option, the structure of the 2 large, 2 medium, 2 small, I presume would be large coastal, large inland, medium coastal, medium inland, and small at large.
First, my motion would include the term and or, so I would like to see it adopt both, and this is where the board can decide to vote against it. But I also don't think that the structure should change of coastal versus inland, except for that additional seat we would define as one inland, 1 coastal for the medium seat, but the large could be anywhere.
So removal of the at-large large seat, leaving the coastal large and inland large, and then adding a medium seat, designating it as coastal and inland. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe it's become too befuddled. I guess I'm just making a motion based on widening the applicant pool and allowing room for option number 1 that we just discussed many weeks ago. But putting option 2 in front of that and then putting the and or in between that.
Okay. I'm just curious as to whether we need to hash out the specifics of those two before we vote on this motion, or whether we can hash out the specifics of the two recommendations after we've decided to include both of them. I didn't mean to muddy up the process. Sorry.
Can I?
No problem. John, please go ahead.
So what I'm hearing, Marcus, try to do is summarize it. And what I heard John say, let me just help here, is that, John, you said number 2 would become number 1, meaning, right, you would say that first and then say and or number 1, meaning the definitional recommendation comes second. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the first point. Then the first recommendation would be to, one way or another, which we need to all understand, is to allow the third large lodging seat as it stands become a medium seat. Now, my question is, what Marcus was just sort of summarizing, and I wasn't sure I heard it this way, was that the two large lodging seats would remain, and I don't think anybody disagrees with this, inland and coastal. That's set. The third seat, which is currently at large, Marcus was hearing that we're recommending a 2, 2, and 1 structure, meaning the mediums would be inland and coastal. I want to talk about that point for a second, because the way we have it written now, this the large at large, let me read what's written now. I guess my question is it only if there's not a third large at large option, and then it becomes a medium? Or are we talking about, John, are you in your motion talking about recommending that it's basically 2, 2, and 1, as Marcus was summarizing? Can you clarify?
Yes, recommending 2, 2, 1, recommending that the coastal seats be large and inland, making up the 2 seats. The medium size be made up of coastal and inland, or if the second seat cannot be filled by either, it will be an at-large. And then keeping the small as a 1.
Small as 1, okay. And then, so that would be listed first as a first, and then and or, because you made that clear, and or change, and this is where I guess the county, would choose to do one or the other, would be this idea of the definitional change to include, as it's written here, this language of general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top level business operations, in quotes. So that would become number 2. Can I ask maybe the county staff, is this, if we make a recommendation as and or, is that something that would be pulled as for discussion? Is that realistic to think that they're going to discuss and come up with an opinion and then do it? Or, you know what I mean? Are we realistic in our expectations of putting an and or thing like this? Can you talk about that?
I can't say for sure how that would be reported, since we are not board staff. I can only submit as your liaison to the board and the Board of Supervisors staff, and we can put in the recommended report that they see that you request they discuss that, but how much time they have on their agenda, I can't say.
Yeah.
And John, I don't foresee it being any different than them looking over all the recommendations. Hopefully they're taking the time to read through this, look at the recommendations and consider them. So whether there's one clear recommendation or whether there's 2 that are an and or, I'd imagine they would consider it equally. Hopefully.
Okay. If there doesn't seem to be any problem with doing an and or, I just wanted to raise it and see if there's a reason to do that or not do that. That's beneficial one way or the other, that this might get done or not. You know what I mean? If we complicate it, then it might not get done, is all I'm worried about. And so I wanted to ask the question, So, John, I hope I clarified some things, at least I did for myself, and I don't know if that makes more sense to everybody now. Did I summarize that right? And Cindy, are you clear? Marcus, are you clear?
I'm still not totally clear on the specifics of the restructuring of the lodging seats. So large would be a coastal and an inland. Medium would be a coastal and an inland. And small would be an at-large. Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's how John said it. John, do you want to respond?
John's connecting. Looks like he's having a little trouble. I heard John say if something though, and I wanted to clarify if I heard that right or not. But I think the best way to do this restructuring is what I just said: large, coastal, inland; medium, coastal, inland; small, at large. And I don't think we'll have any trouble filling an at-large small seat. I don't think the pool for that would be. John Gladwell?
Sorry, I lost my audio for about a minute there, but I'm back in. Yeah, I heard what you said at the end, and I'm fine with it. Yes, that sounds like a fine revised motion. If anyone is willing to second it.
Okay, do we need staff to clarify the motion so they make sure that it was recorded correctly for the records? Or who takes? Is it?
Travis said he had it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take as long as you need. I think you get the idea of what we were. I know that was a little coming from mighty coming from all different directions, but
No, I got it. It's not a problem. I will have that with the. I'm going to have to wordsmith it a little bit and make it sound good.
Okay.
But I'll have that in the next draft to you guys.
Okay. Can I recommend? I know you'll wordsmith it, but the structure of this is unique, as we've never done an and/or before, and I would like to suggest that we put, this board recommends that the Board of Supervisors choose either of these two options or the combination of, and then list off the two options. But I'm sorry, we still have a motion on the floor and no second. So, and we've been discussing it. But we kind of need to make sure. Well, if we all trust that Travis has gotten the gist of what we were trying to do, and we trust him to mock up the draft recommendation for us to review in the next meeting, then I suggest we get a second on this motion and vote on it.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, none here either. All right, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Okay, so it took us half an hour on that one. Okay, moving on to recommendation number 2, actionable by the County of Mendocino. This is to add onto the TOT and bid forms a place to collect the data or write down the data for the average daily occupancy and the average daily rate. I have one comment on this. When this was originally recommended, we were at a month-to-month TOT and bid collection. Now we're at a quarter. And so I'm wondering if we should restructure this to break it down month to month. And I suppose, Travis, I'll need your input as to whether it's worth it to have our lodging owners do that. Is the data that can be collected of the ADO and the ADR month to month substantially more useful than quarter to quarter?
Sorry, I was talking and on mute.
No worries. Do you need me to re-ask the question?
No. I've got the question. Yes and no. Mm-hmm. What I think is I don't think we can ask the treasurer tax collector to do they're processed differently, collected on a monthly basis. I think that once we know, again, what their system's capable of doing and how those online TOT and bid submission payments are going to go, that it'll be a lot clearer to us as to what information we can get.
Right. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that I wanted to restructure or switch back to a month to month. What I'm suggesting is rather than having one slot of what was your ADR for this quarter, that we break it up. What was your ADA month 1, month 2, month 3 for this quarter? That's my suggestion on altering this recommendation. For a lodging owner, if they're going to calculate their quarter's worth of ADR and ADO, it's going to take a few minutes more to break it up by month, really. So we're not asking a whole lot more from the lodging owners to fill this out if we wanted to break it up by month. So on each quarterly sheet, there would be the ADR, month 1, month 2, month 3. ADO, month 1, month 2, month 3. So would month-to-month ADR and ADO be far more valuable to you than a quarter's worth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So I would like to make a recommendation to alter this recommendation to suggest that not only those be added, but they be broken out with month 1, month 2, month 3. Any comments from the board about that, or suggestions or questions?
I have one comment as county staff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious if it might be better to move 3 to 2 and 2 down to 3, just because in knowing that mostly all that they are working on right now is implementation of the new software. And I don't think they're going to get to your request in option 2 before the implementation of the software. If it would be better to state, knowing that they're implementing new software, we're going to make this request and see if they can get to it, kind of thing.
I don't understand why it can't be implemented before the software. I mean, we're not asking them to compile the data. We're just asking them to start collecting it so it can be compiled later, and not even collecting it. They don't. It's just adding this to the paperwork, and then later down the line, if we ever want to go back, the data is there to input if they have the time, versus starting it when they know their system. I mean, that's
right.
If that's too much of an ask, I will respect that. But all we're asking them is to not compile the data yet. We're just asking them to put this on the paperwork so the data is recorded.
Very true. I don't think it's too much of an ask. It's not my department. I will only say that in working with them, I don't think you're going to get any updates or any changes till after their software is done. And I don't think this ask will be met.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think this is a shoot for the stars situation and fall short, but I still think that it's worth, shooting for.
Yeah.
And maybe we clarify that in this recommendation, so we understand that the software is not in place yet. All we ask is that the forms be changed. Forms be changed so this data can start being recorded with no obligation on the county side to start compiling it yet. So I don't know. How do the other board members feel about that?
Well, I think here's what I think. And I'm going to just be brutally honest. We've made this recommendation to the treasurer tax collector. This will be the 3rd year.
Mm-hmm.
She's been very clear with us that when the new system is implemented, she will start collecting data for us.
Okay.
And I mean, we can keep re-recommending and changing how we word what we're recommending, but I think ultimately we're going to get the same outcome. She's told us when the system's implemented, you will get the information.
The TOT forms will be changed at that point.
Correct.
Okay. If they've been clear about that, then yes, then there's no point in pushing.
Yeah, she's been very clear with nothing's going to change until the system's implemented.
Okay. So that being said, I'd still like to, keep this recommendation on the books, and I'd still like to suggest that it be broken out on the form, maybe broken out month 1, month 2, month 3. Is everybody amenable to that? Is it realistic and possible? Travis.
It's fine with me. I've already changed the recommendation to read by month and sent an email off to my team to have the forms recreated again.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. So everyone sound okay. Yeah, I got high five from John. Cindy, does that sound good to you?
It does. What do you think about Adrian's suggestion to reverse the order, Travis? Can we do that as well?
So I didn't quite catch that one. Do you want to tell me again what that was?
Oh, I was just saying change the order, Travis, because Sherry has said until the software is implemented, they're not going to do it. So maybe make 3 number 2 so that when the new software is implemented and then 2 becomes 3 because we know she's not going to change the form until later.
Okay.
But that was just a suggestion. It's totally up to the board.
That seems to make sense.
Because what I think I'm looking at is 1 and 2 being combined in total instead of being separated.
I see. You mean 2 and 3. So start with the knowledge that the software is being implemented, and then the second sentence will be as previously recommended, add to the TOT forms.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so combining number 2 and number 3 to 1.
Yep.
Recommendation. Okay, I'm fine
Got
with
it.
that. Everybody okay with that? Why is my hand?
Sounds good.
Great. Any other questions or comments on that one? Hearing none, I'll go to recommendation number 4, actionable by the County of Mendocino.
Can I just make a note? It's not substantive, but in that, we use that language as previously recommended, and we did specifically say which years. We talked about that previously for some of these other ones, that if we want to document for posterity, how many times each one of these might have been done. There's precedence here for that. And if we want to do that in the future now or in the future, I think it makes it clear that this board and different board members that have been here over the years have recommended the same thing. In this case, it's happened above too. And if we wanted to use that same format, I just wanted to acknowledge it. It's been done.
Travis, would you be willing to any of the re-recommended motion or recommendations? Would you be willing to compile when they were originally recommended and if they were recommended any additional years and include that in the recommendation?
I'm trying to remember where I saved my final.
Thank you.
I think I have one in my email, but I won't be able to get it off my phone.
Won't take too much time. Okay, number 4. Oh, that planning and building services staff will provide the board with quarterly updates and share that information with the bid advisory board. What's specifically in the quarterly updates?
Can I ask a question? I'm missing number 4. Are we on page 27?
Yes. So I'll go ahead and read it. Planning and building services staff would provide the board with quarterly updates and share that information with the bid advisory board. Actual time on the board's regular agenda is precious and routine. Verbal quarterly progress updates would likely, sorry, my next page is blurred, would likely be bumped for more urgent matters. A quarterly report on the consent calendar or in conjunction with a PBS activity report could be brought forward from, does that say PBS? Regardless,
Services, yeah.
Regardless of how full the board's agenda may be. What would be in these, what is being reported here?
That's my question.
Yeah, that's my same question.
What do you want me to report on for updates?
Wait.
Can I ask you just, I clicked, I think, on the version of I'm not sure where I got it now. I think from the county website. And I don't see on page 27 that there's a number 4.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't either. So
I think staff may have posted the wrong version.
So I'm looking at the one, Travis, that you emailed me on February 25th. That's what I'm using. Is that not the most current?
No, after the last meeting, we had a new draft.
Oh, I'm sorry. And we probably discussed that and removed that, huh?
Yeah, that came off.
Whew.
Oh, sorry. I'm wondering if this was, the intent of this recommendation was that the Board of Supervisors, well, I remember a potential recommendation that the Board of Supervisors don't just look at this report once and put it aside, that it be reviewed quarterly, if necessary, of the recommendations they considered and adopted, and then reviewed quarterly or biannually the progress
I think
of
we
those
put the right one on.
recommendations
Okay,
they
Hopefully, I'll have to look at my email later. It's
pursued
too
or
old to get on my
adopted.
phone.
And I'm wondering if
But
this
he said,
recommendation
yeah,
before
25th
was
and Travis said
a
Yeah.
version of
Sounds
that.
good.
Okay.
It was.
Right. So once again, I guess I submit to the board, do we want a recommendation where we suggest that the Board of Supervisors don't look at their report just once a year, that if they pursue any of the recommendations, that they review the progress of those recommendations quarterly so it doesn't become out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I hear you. I think the response to that is normally we would do that, but due to limited time, it might not happen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think we all agreed to remove that item on one of our previous meetings.
Okay. We trust the Board of Supervisors to do their due diligence, and if they do adopt or pursue any of these recommendations, that they will, on their own accord, get updates about it and progress reports. And then I guess that the Planning and Building Services would provide quarterly reports of their progress to MCTC board and bid advisory board. That goes without saying. We don't need to make a recommendation for that.
I mean, that's kind of how the system works.
Okay. Yeah, if it's in place and it's redundant, there's no point in a recommendation.
Adrienne has to deal with me way more than she'd like to, so.
Good, you keep me on my toes.
All right, so there is no recommendation number 4, and that is the conclusion of the draft recommendations actionable by the County of Mendocino from this board, in this draft report. Great. Okay. I am still going to be using unfortunately, the draft report that I put notes on from the 25th that you sent me. I'm sorry. My apologies for not having the most recent version. But at this point, if we're done with the recommendation sections, if no other board members have questions or comments on that, then I suggest we open it up to any points within the report that the board wants to address.
Thanks, Marcus. I have none.
Travis, if you would like me to do another once over and you want to send me an editable version, I'm happy to fly through it one more time. I just have a couple of questions for you. Maybe I can just talk to you privately about consistency with different things. This is all, pretty much just grammatical punctuation things.
Yep, sure. Not a problem. What I thought I would do with this round, being that we're so far along with this, is I would send this draft into graphic design and get it created so that it's in its submittable format. And then we can take it at the next meeting and go through all little, every little thing, but we'll be seeing it in its presentation mode.
That sounds perfect. That's great. Just
High
whatever's
five.
helpful. Whatever's helpful. I know that you're short-staffed with proofreaders, so I'm just happy to help you with that if you need it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Travis, I had just a couple questions on a few things.
Sure.
Page 12. The graph that was inserted, or the pie chart, I'm sorry, that was inserted.
I'm scrolling, sorry.
Or this is a silly question. So when you're there.
Go ahead.
But obviously the chart that says my destination is Mendocino County.
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to change that to Mendocino County?
I can't change that.
Oh, you can. Okay.
No, that's a graph that's provided to me. I mean, I could recreate our own version, but it wouldn't have Destination International's logo.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
This is an accurate. These are accurate figures of our previous year or our current year.
previous fiscal.
No. Go ahead. Sorry, this is our goal or our.
No, this is our comparison for the previous fiscal year.
Okay, great. That was my only question on that. Down to the budget, upcoming budget year.
What page, please?
It's page 22.
Thank you. Okay.
I understand that there's going to be now 2 contingency funds. Are they going to show separately? And if so, we're going to show the required, according to the bid ordinance, contingency fund, which is 10% of the total expenses, and then separately show the additional contingency fund. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I mean, all the money will live in the same account, but on the financials, it will break out the restricted and savings.
Okay, so shouldn't that be reflected on this? Should we see the restricted contingency fund being $104,579, which is 10% of the total expenses, and then see the additional funds in a separate line item, the additional savings?
If that's how you want this one to look, sure, I can.
Well, I know that you got this from the finance committee. I guess I'm curious as to, I don't understand the breakout of the 2 different contingency funds listed on this. Portion to unrestricted reserve.
That's the savings. That's the amount we're saving from the budget that's going
next year.
That's going into savings.
Okay. And then existing right now is 296,000 in the fund.
That's what will be. No, that's what will be existing at the end of the fiscal year.
And then those 2 numbers add up to the 440 you need in your savings.
After one more year.
After one more year. Okay. That's why we don't see it. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I mean, if the finance committee has approved this and the MCTC board has approved it, that's the way they want it structured. I'm not gonna suggest something else.
This is just the form that this report has always used,
right?
Not the financial statements from the organization, which read, in a financial statement manner rather than a budget list.
Right. Okay. And I think that was all my questions on the draft. Does any other board members have any questions or comments on the draft report?
Thanks for your leadership, Marcus.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Nope, nothing further.
I have nothing. Good job, Marcus, and good job, Travis.
Yes, thank you, Travis.
Thank you, guys.
I know we appreciate you taking your time to take care of all this, when we, of course, would prefer you spending your time marketing the county, but this is an important process to do, and And thank you for your time on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if there's nothing further to discuss, we'll have our next meeting. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Well, nothing further to discuss regarding the draft report. Are we ready to move on to the next?
Really quickly, can I make a request?
Yeah.
Marcus, would you work on the executive summary
Uh-huh.
and get that back to me for the next draft?
Okay. And the next draft we'll be reviewing in, is it 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from now.
Wednesday.
April 7th.
Okay, 3 weeks from now. Wednesday, April 7th?
Correct.
Okay. Is that date was the date we penciled in, I believe. Every other board member is good with that date, April 7th for our next meeting, 3 weeks from now, or is that a month from now? Wait.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Great. All right. I will definitely work on an executive summary and get that to you. How you have to put the agenda out a week before the meeting?
Adrian, what's your drop dead date for the next draft?
We could post, or I could say Angie could post April 2nd because I won't be here. Drop dead. If you can get it to her by April 1st or a couple days before, totally done, that'd be great to post.
Okie dokie. That timeline's fine with me.
Okay.
All right. Travis, I'll try to get it to you no later than the 26th. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
26th. Because I'm going to write a novel. Just kidding. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6B, approval of the draft March 3rd minutes. Looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll motion to approve those minutes. I'll move.
Looking for a second?
Second.
John Dixon seconds. John Gladwell made the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll abstain as I was not present at that meeting. Okay. Agenda item number 7, matters from the advisory board. Do we have any matters from the advisory board? Other than the fact we're still looking for a 5th seat. Okay. Hearing none. Moving on to adjournment. What?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh.
late matter from the advisory board. I received in the mail confirmation that I am official on the board until I think February of 22.
All right. That's great.
You're
Wait.
stuck with us.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
And it's
I'm happy
posted
to be stuck
online.
with you.
It's posted online. I sent that to Travis last time.
Oh, Adrian, thank you. That's perfect.
You're welcome.
My gosh, I forget. We're 2-year terms, right, on this? 2-year terms on this board? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if that's the case, John, I think John Dixon and I are staggered with you, so that means ours must be up this coming February. This next February. Yeah, this next coming February. So so we'll start the next report next November or December, right?
Yes. November. We try for November. I usually make it by December.
So John Dixon, I guess John Gladwell and Cindy must be on, together in their terms, and then John Dixon and I believe, are together in our terms. So if we want to be involved, John Dixon, in the next year's annual report, I think we need to reapply this coming November, FYI, or October, whenever it is. So keep that in mind. Okay. Move to adjourn. And I always forget.
So moved.
All
thank
right,
you.
we are adjourned. See everybody on April 7th at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
via Zoom.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you. Good
Take care.
job.
Bye.
Bye.